White Americans' hold on wealth is old, deep, and nearly unshakable. This is published in Bloomberg. Okay? White families recuperated financial losses post-slavery and then created Jim Crow. So let's read on. Now listen closely to this one. It's going to cost the United States $1 trillion to maintain its long-standing white and black racial wealth gap between now and 2028. This means that the United States has worked very hard and spent a lot of money to maintain supremacy. The amount of money that is put into it is unreal. They go through extreme measures. To not pay reparations to Black Americans because that one thing alone will destroy that wealth gap. It's all about the feeling of supremacy. It's all about being able to always write articles comparing, saying, see what I got compared to you. It's simply an ego trip. But an ego trip off of what? Let's see, because how was the wealth gotten? The wealth, income, and savings that white families accumulated during slavery supplied the economic thew, aka strength, that catapulted them into elite, affluent status during the country's first 2 centuries of existence. But it was community context and creative credit machinations, aka credit plots and schemes, that helped white families maintain that status. Now let's move on over to the 1940s. In the 1940s, welcome to Jim Crow credit. White families and farm owners were taking advantage of loans created by what was then called the Federal Housing Administration and the Farm Security Administration. This is where they got their wealth. Again, before the Civil War, mortgage and credit were collateralized on the backs of the enslaved. But by the 1940s, white families could get mortgages and credit collateralized by land, houses, and farms. Look at there. They didn't even have to be wealthy to do it. But guess who was cut out of that deal? You guessed it. African American farmers and families were unable to establish the wealth that former slave-holding families were re-establishing, nor could they access the loans at the same rates as white people. This is a fact. Read the story called The Great Land Robbery. Ding, 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 ding. How black farmers lost their land and farms during this time period. African Americans were robbed. We owned lots of land. Guess who robbed us? And African Americans did not get their land from stealing. However, African Americans got stole on. Well, how did we get stolen on? Discrimination, unlawful denials, swindles by lawyers and spectators, violence and intimidation, none of which was happening to white people. As a matter of fact, the loan denials were by white-controlled committees, forcing black farmers to foreclose. And guess who would purchase the property? Mostly white, wealthy people. Yep, this was financial apartheid. The government had so much money to give away to white families, right? For home improvements. Then this sparked the whole credit line party. The consumer credit market for whites shifted from the rigid and expensive installment lending model to the flexible and less expensive revolving credit model, enabled by the credit card. Of course, African Americans were redlined out of all this, okay? We weren't allowed to participate in this credit market until legislation was passed in when? 1974, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, which required banks to approve credit. It had to require the banks to do it. That means they weren't doing it. They had to require them to do it, okay? To approve credit based on the credit score system we use today. Meanwhile, white families had 40 whole years of unmitigated access to credit to build wealth through homes and purchase luxuries. And even when they did lend to African Americans, they were predatory loans with high interest rates. So basically, freed African Americans were mostly robbed of what little bit of land they were able to possess after the Civil War and passed over for the mortgage loans and credit lines awarded to white families. Looks like they got reparations. That is absolutely crazy, right? Well, there's a little bit more. Whenever African Americans did acquire what they needed to acquire, it was taken from them again. So now this is the reason why people need to stop comparing black wealth to white wealth. African Americans got what we got fair and square, while having to jump hurdle after hurdle from the United States government. Now we're doing good, considering we didn't rob other people to get it. We have about 2 million African American millionaires. And we're starting to rebuild what was burned down. But still yet, in 2024, the government is trying to make it harder for us to even loan ourselves money. And other groups are coming in, trying to stall us out too, like getting rid of affirmative action when they didn't know that would hurt them too. So remember, it's nothing to be proud of to know that you're spending trillions and robbing millions, all to maintain some kind of ego. That's not a good foundation at all.